Good evening and welcome to Closing Arguments. I'm Michael Ayala, in tonight for Vinnie Politan. We begin tonight in Los Angeles County, California, where the trial of Robert Durst is coming to a close. Now, we expect closing arguments to begin tomorrow and continue through next Tuesday. And tonight, we are taking a look at what the jury may hear in those arguments. Durst is accused of killing his good friend Susan Berman. And prosecutors say Bob is also responsible for the disappearance and death of his wife Kathleen and the murder of Morris Black. Now, for prosecutors, both killings are important to proving that he killed Susan Berman, and prosecutor John Lewin brought up all these victims during his opening statements. Here's some of what he had to say.
The evidence in this case is going to show that he is responsible for the disappearance and the death of his missing wife, Kathy McCormick Durst. We're going to show that Robert Durst murdered his close friend and confidant, Susan Berman. And we're going to show that he did that with the motive and because she was a witness, and by witness meaning that she assisted him in covering up the killing of his wife almost 20 years earlier. Finally, we're going to show that Robert Durst killed, dismembered, and dumped Morris Black's corpse, his body parts, in trash bags into Galveston Bay in September of 2001. So there's going to be 3 killings that we are going to prove.
All right, let's bring in the think tank now. Joining us tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney and attorney for several of R. Kelly's accusers, Gerald Griggs, and in Seattle, Washington, trial attorney Ann Bremner. Thank you so much for being with me this evening, and I'll start with you, Ann. We heard there the prosecutor talking about 3 different murders. Did they indeed bite off more than they can chew in this case?
I was just thinking, great minds think alike, Michael. So I was thinking the same thing. Why you take on a burden that you don't have to? He just said we're going to prove 3 murders to you. He doesn't have to. That's not his burden. He needs to prove 1, and that's the murder of Susan Berman. And you see others to show basically motive and other evidence that would connect Robert Durst to the murder of Susan Berman.
All right, let me bring in now from Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney and former federal prosecutor and law professor at Texas Southern University, Michael Sterling. We had a little technical problems, but glad to see you with us, Mike. Appreciate you being on the show. And Gerald, let me go to you. And in a case like this that took over, I think it was over 50 plus days, tons of evidence, tons of testimony, does the closing argument take on added importance?
I think so. Just like the opening statements or roadmap, the closing argument is your last opportunity to sell your case to the jury. And I think it's important for you to hit the highlights and show how the facts meet and fit the evidence and how the law applies to those facts. And when you nail it, sometimes you can feel it, but sometimes when you whiff, you can definitely tell. I think in this case, like she just said, they bit off more than they can chew. You only have to prove 1 murder here, and there's circumstantial evidence, but there's a lack of forensic evidence. So I think the prosecution has still had uphill battle, and they're going to have to seal it in closing.
Yeah, they both make great points, Michael Sterling. And I think at the end of the day, when you think about this closing argument, I think the most important thing for the prosecution, at least in my mind, is really connecting the dots between all 3. So many times online, folks were asking, why are we hearing so much about Morris Black? What does Kathy Durst have to do with this? I think somehow they lost the forest for the trees there, so they're going to have to connect the dots.
Yeah, especially against a seasoned lawyer, one of the best to ever do it, like Dick DeGuerin, who actually handled the Morris Black case and probably knows more about that case and the specifics than the prosecutor did, because he was the one who handled that case and won the acquittal for Mr. Durst in that particular trial. So, yeah, I think, to Ann and Gerald's point, they bit off a little more than they could chew. Obviously, Dick DeGuerin, who knows everything about that case, the Morris Black case, is going to argue, and we've already heard bits and pieces of that in his opening, that the 3 killings are nothing alike. They're not, remotely related. And the Morris Black killing, you had tons of evidence left around, things that detectives found. And then the other 2, you had almost no forensic evidence found by detectives or investigators. So he's going to argue one of these is not like the other.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned that Dick DeGuerin may know the most about Morris Black's case. I would argue John Lewin knows more about any of these cases than anyone. All right, you know, while prosecutors, guys, believe that Durst is responsible for 3 different deaths, he is on trial again for the murder of Susan Berman. That could have gotten lost a little bit during the trial. And during his opening statement, John Lewin spoke about why Durst killed Susan Berman. Let's listen.
The evidence is going to show that Mr. Durst did not want to kill Susan Berman. He didn't kill her out of hatred. He didn't kill her out of revenge. He didn't kill her because he disliked her. He killed her out of survival. He believed, and this comes from his mouth, he believed that in the end, it was her or me. I had no choice. And what the evidence is going to show is that you can fault Mr. Durst for the murderous nature of his conduct with Susan Berman. But what you can't fault him for is, from his perspective, the necessity of having done it. The problem the evidence is going to show with the murder of Susan Berman is that Mr. Durst committed that murder about 20 years too late, because Susan Berman had already told her story to numerous people.
Now, Ann Bremner, here's something that we have to remember. They brought in evidence of Kathy Durst's supposed murder. They brought in evidence of what happened in Morris Black. But what the jury is going to be told in their charge is that you just have to believe by a preponderance of the evidence that, in fact, it was more likely than not he committed those crimes. Now, when you start adding up one to the next, and then you get to Susan Berman, I mean, that becomes a bit of an avalanche here, even though how much evidence there is of the actual murder of Susan Berman is questionable.
Well, exactly. I mean, and I think that's where Dick DeGuerin, I agree with Michael Sterling. I mean, Dick DeGuerin's going to be a master at this. There is no forensic evidence. You've got one note that's been explained away. There's nothing else. The dearth of evidence. So this supposed avalanche, what does it mean? Is it evidence? Does it prove anything? Did they prove that he killed his wife? No. And by the way, he got acquitted in Galveston. Let's remember that. Presumption of innocence, which he has here. And now with this case, there's absolutely nothing. And this is a prosecutor is taking this really personally. He'll do anything for this conviction. I mean, look at the way he cross-examined Durst for day after day after day. And that's what he has for evidence. If you want to call it evidence, it's weak. I mean, that's what we're going to hear from the defense. But it can be called an avalanche, you know, and it will be, I'm sure, in closing by Lewin.
Yeah, clearly an argument can be made that, and I'm sorry, you got cut off a little bit there, but clearly an argument can be made that he made his entire case during the cross-examination of Robert Durst. And then, because another theme that actually came up in will come up in Lewin's closing argument could be the reliability of Robert Durst himself. Now, Lewin spent days, as you mentioned, cross-examining Durst about the many different statements he's made over the years, all the inconsistencies, and whether or not Durst would actually admit to killing anyone if he actually had done it. Let's take a listen to that.
Mr. Durst, the last area that Mr. DeGuerin covered with you is he asked you, did you love Kathy? And then he asked you, would you kill Kathy? And you responded no, correct?
I responded that I loved Kathy, and I responded that I did not kill Kathy.
And then he asked you if you loved Susan, and you said yes, you love Susan. And he asked you if you would kill Susan, and you said no, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Durst, you have repeatedly admitted that if you had killed either Kathy or Susan or both of them, you would never tell us, correct?
Correct.
All right, Gerald Griggs, you know, one of the feathers in the prosecution's cap is the fact that, you know, Robert Durst was caught in I don't know how many inconsistencies. And you got to imagine that Lewin, actually Habib is doing the original closing argument and Lewin is handling the rebuttal. You got to figure they're going to hammer hard this idea that, you know, why lie? He lied because he was guilty.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a classic trick of the prosecution, but the defense will rebut that by saying you have to prove it, and you have to prove it with evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. And the evidence that you have right now is very, very slim. So That's why you don't put your client up, because of the inconsistencies, but that still can preclude him being convicted if the state does not prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's why you argue they brought in all this extraneous information to hide the ball from you, the jury, that they can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Durst did any of this. So you need to return a verdict that speaks the truth, and that's not guilty. And that's what his lawyer will do.
And Michael, if you listen to Ann and Gerald, at the end of the day, it sounds like Robert Durst taking the stand was a big mistake.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was certainly a tough call, and I'm not gonna sit here and question Dick DeGuerin. You try typically not to put your clients on the stand. They have the Fifth Amendment, right, and ordinarily it doesn't bode well. It's obviously in many cases a no-win situation. I will say Dick DeGuerin did a very good job of laying some of the framework for why these inconsistencies may exist. He specifically filed motions for mistrial to tell the judge that, and had an expert testify that Mr. Durst had some cognitive disabilities in his elderly state and his medical conditions that could affect his ability to testify, remember, recall, recollect things. And so he sort of laid the framework for why some of those inconsistencies may exist. So I anticipate, Michael, what you will hear is Dick DeGuerin reiterate some of that. This is an elderly man, who's sick, has cancer, who's got, an expert that said he had cognitive impairment that would hurt his ability to potentially testify, recall specific facts and information. So you can anticipate hearing that argument in closing, I think.
No question about it. It's going to be fascinating stuff. All right, Think Tank, please stand by. You guys are going to stick with me.